the benefit-driven oak. Imagine confidently tackling any Zimsec religious studies question, even the ones that stump everyone else. In this video, we're not just breaking down the hardest questions, we're giving you the exact strategies and insights you need to ace them and unlock those top grades.
The poor and the orphans and the widows, they were being oppressed. Their land was being grabbed by the rich. Furthermore, there was corruption in leadership, whereby the poor, their cries or their plea were not taken seriously. Rather, the leaders, they respected the rich rather than the poor. Furthermore, there was land grabbing, whereby the land of the poor, the land of the widows, the land of the orphans was the poor. Furthermore, there was land grabbing, whereby the land of the poor, the land of the widows, the land of the orphans were taken by force by the rich, and they given them a small token amount of money for them to survive, according to Isaiah chapter 5 verse 8. Furthermore, there was negligence of justice. When we are talking about negligence of justice, that is what we call corruption in courts again. And furthermore, taking consideration, championed, so they were the voice of the voiceless. They played other roles. For example, Amos, he preached about the universalism of God. According to Amos chapter 1 and 2, he preached that God is for everyone. God can rule anyone in the coming. God can rule anyone in this world. And the interface Bible. Right. So the question says, how far do you agree that canonical prophets were voice of the voiceless? So this question demands candidates to note who were the canonical prophets. Canonical prophets, these are known as writing prophets, the Old Testament writing prophets. Who are the writing prophets? These were prophets who had books written after their names, or books written related to their names. For example, we've got Amos, we've got Isaiah, we've got Jeremiah, we've got Hosea. These are some of the prophets who are denoted or who are aligned as canonical prophets. So when we are saying they are a voice of the voiceless, it means that they will withstand with the poor. They were supporting the poor, rebuking social injustice. So in other words, the question says, how far do you agree that writing prophets, they were fighting for social justice in the society? Are we together? However, good candidates should denote or should evaluate that these prophets, they played other roles rather than social injustice. So we can find this question written, they were advocates of the poor, they championed social justice, and whatsoever. So, for example, Amos can be referred as a prophet who was the voice of the voiceless. Why? Because he rebuked slavery. According to Amos chapter 2, verse 6, it showed that the Israelites, the wealthier classes, they used to sell the poor for a pair of sandals. For a pair of shoes, according to Amos. And also, there was corruption in courts, whereby the poor, they were not given justice. And since the rich could pay for any service, so they were deemed that also social injustice in the poor, they were being used by the rich, and that is the forced labor. And forced kushanda for free. And this was against Amos. Also Isaiah, I was against the oppression of the poor and the widows, according to Isaiah chapter 1 verse 17, whereby the poor and the orphans and the widows, they were being oppressed. Their land was being grabbed by the rich. Furthermore, there was corruption in leadership, whereby the poor, they were their cries or their plea were not taken seriously. Rather, the leaders, they respected the rich rather than the poor. Furthermore, there was land grabbing, whereby the land of the poor, the land of the widows, the land of the orphans were taken by force by the rich, and they given them a small token amount of money for them to survive, according to Isaiah chapter 5 verse 8. Furthermore, there was negligence of justice. When we are talking about negligence of justice, that is what we call corruption in courts again. And furthermore, taking consideration of Jeremiah, he was against the oppression of the poor and the helpless, according to Jeremiah chapter 5 verse 26. The situation was the same. Also, there was corruption in leadership, according to Jeremiah chapter 6 verse 13 to 14, whereby the leaders, they were not taking consideration that the poor, they also require justice. There was a false security in religion. When I'm talking about false security in religion, it is a event whereby the poor, even if they go to the temple with their sacrifices, it was not taken seriously. Whereby in churches, in leadership, and whatsoever, only the rich were considered to be those who should benefit anything. And furthermore, there was moral decay. When I'm talking about moral decay, the Israelite morals, according to the Mosaic law, even the poor, they should be respected. But in this case, the poor were being taken as slaves or as animals. And don't know that. Then, however, despite that, the prophets in Israel, they were championed. So they were the voice of the voiceless. They played other roles. For example, Amos, he preached about the universalism of God. According to Amos chapter 1 and 2, he preached that God is for everyone. God can rule anyone in the coming. God can rule anyone in this world. And the interpreter Bible, Amos here the same. He also preached about my issues religious apostates, where people, they worship God and idols. To him, it was not supposed to be like that. It was not allowed to worship both the idols and Yahweh. And also, well, what else? He was against Egypt. He spread the message of doom when he said, for 3 and for 4 transgressions of Judah, I will not revoke the punishment. Israel was going to be destroyed by Yahweh because of easy religious decay. And then from there, we've got Hosea. Hosea used his matrimonial marriage to preach the word of God. For example, he preached about destruction of Israel. Hosea foot. He preached doom. Number 2, he preached also about the sinful nature of Israel, where Hosea represented God and Gomer, a wife, represented Israel. So he used his symbolic action using his matrimonial marriage to preach that it was not good for the Israelites to keep sinning against God. And also, he preached akapreachers vakawanda. The interpreter toenda pana Isaiah, he preached about, he was against the signing of the Syro-Ephraimite alliance. What was the Syro-Ephraimite alliance? The Syro-Ephraimite alliance, it was an alliance which was supposed to be signed between Israel and Syria, so that Israel can be protected. Yet, according to Isaiah, they should also know that God is the only one who can protect them. Then also, Isaiah, he preached, about the coming of Emmanuel. He preached about Emmanuel. That I preach out, even though you are murumatambudziko izvezvi, kuchauya munhu achakuregerera izvi zvenyu. Toenda pana Jeremiah, the same. Jeremiah, he preached also, he was against the Syro-Ephraimite alliance. He also talked about Israel being in exile for 70 years. So he was saying that for the Israelites to be kuti varegererwe naMwari vanofanira kusiya kuita zvakaipa andika, because they are going to be in Babylon for 70 years. And also he was against false prophesying of Obadiah na Hezekiah and nyaya dzese idzodzo. So this was how we were going to solve this question amicably. Ndizoka ndonawo dzacho idzodzo. Saka maprophets aya anouya macanonical